part 2 of 2 Chronicles, and as you can see where I'm going to start from, and if I can just get this right here. Okay. I left off, I was talking about, what was I talking about? The angel's wingspans. I'm using the word made to come down here to make the format. It was not for the front, it was for the porch. Let's be descriptive about this word here. Or be more exact. The capitals were on their tops. You have to have an each. See what it says of each? Well, I can put an S there. Moving the word made from there to here. So now here, I moved this verse here from down here. Okay, I just didn't add all this here. I only used from here to here, and I moved it up, and now the verses read correctly and more understandably at this time, and not placed but connected to the capitals. The pomegranates are placed on them. I didn't have, the chains are up here, okay, so I don't need the chains. The chains are made, and then the pomegranates were on the chains, and then that's how they're there, okay? Just for you to understand that I do have it all figured out. Oh, I forgot, people are new here. The blue text I'm getting rid of for those reasons. The green text is what I'm changing or needed adding to the text, or changing a word when I have this here. When I'm adding a word completely, it's yellow like this, but if I'm adding a complete verse, I do this, and I'll be carrying this color forward. So in the next text, you'll see a lot that'll be here that's added as well. It has to be the large altar because the size, it's 2, but I think I had to make up a verse to make 12 more because they don't have that in here. So they got rid of it, but this one's going to be large. It's 5 by 5. And then cast a top, not a C, but a top. And it's going to be circular in form for the large altar with a rim around it. Because it's got brim to brim. Well, that doesn't really mean, the object is I'm putting that into this, a rim around it. Okay, because if it's circular, you can't say brim to brim. But anyways, I needed to add the word a rim around the edge. Now, was the rim underneath or was it on top? That's debatable. That's debatable. As one casting, yes, okay. I'm just reading to make sure I know the story when I'm trying to explain what's going on here. Okay, now the things that are being used for the priest and what's needed. When they have these basins, which is to wash, well, you got to ask, what are they washing? They're washing their hands. You got to understand, the priest is supposed to remove the muscles. So here he's going to be cutting up the muscles, putting it on the plate that the attendant is going to be holding. And then they're going to carry it in and they're going to put it on hooks on the altar, the meat. Okay. And now the next thing here that they're saying is being made, and I had to add 3 because every one of these needed to be made for all 3 of them, is a bronze fire stand. Not a lampstand, but a fire, because it's the fire that they're going to bring from there over and put it under to start the burning of the meat. So the thing here is, or the muscles, I gotta make sure it's the muscles. And it's set by by the altars. Yeah, set them by the altars because they have to be near the place you can't have them too far away. So I'm going to have them set by the altars. Now here, I had to add the word two because they're only going to make 10 more altars. They need to have one for each tribe, so the word two has to be added. And they aren't tables, they're altars. And I will make them 3 square. The big one is 5, and this one is 3. So that's the size of the altars here. And place them in the temple. That's wrong. It's in the courtyard. You can't put them into a house. His house. The word temple I'm using it as is the way a lot of text in the Hebrew will say that there other people made temples to place their god idols in. So there is no idols in or making of any carvings of our Creator in his meeting room. He is meeting with them. So the thing here is it's a house. People that could want to say that it's a tent or or a temple or what was it? What's the funny word? I can't think of it. I know it's a sanctuary. Like our Creator needs a sanctuary from his creation. I don't think so. But 6 by 6. These are the see they had 10 altars and I need 6 on each side. In the courtyard there'll be the large one and then there'll be 6 on each side. So the large altar I believe should be closest to the door, okay, to the house. Here is they made the courtyard floor, and they made the court. I have to add the word yard and the word floor because a forever house means forever. So the limestone blocks would have been used for flooring. Granite would have been too hard to shape to build all this in time. So I believe it was limestone blocks, and I think that's what's actually, the floor is still there in existence. And then the gates, not the doors, but the gates to the courtyard, okay, and they were from bronze, and they mounted them on the southeast, no, on the south. So now we have the bronze gates for the entrance is on the south, okay, so the door is south, everything's laid out. So now you have the true visual of the layout of the courtyard and the construction of the house. Well, they had to make pails and shovels, and this was for removing the ashes. So I had to add that to let you know what those were used for. Then the stands for the basins. Now see how far out of order the text is? This is going to have to move up. I don't think I got the word bronze spelled right. That's just not seen right. Yep. Okay. So the thing here is cast of bronze. Okay. And then when talking about shales, Paul, this is all the items because there's many other items that were there, like the altars were made of polished bronze. So everything was gleaming. And they did it not on the plains of the Jordan, but on the banks where there had been clay. And this would have been near Jericho. Why Jericho? Because it just makes sense that where I was in the right group, I messed up. Get rid of that already. If here is Jerusalem. So this is the nearest, and because it's the Dead Sea, it has to be by Jericho, would be the most logical place somewhere along. And through here is where this was done. So now you have a visual of where that was done, because this city does not exist, okay, near Jericho. Now there's this is stuck out in the middle now of whatever here, because there is going to be a table that's going to be made, and we don't have that table yet, but there's going to be a bowl on it. And it's not, if you make a bowl, you don't set bread into it, but you would put wheat. It would be, this is our Creator's promise to the people, that they will always have plentiful food. So this was his showing that this wheat was always before him, that he's promised that no famines or anything. When they started going away from him, then the famine, you can see that they broke the promise. So he's breaking the promise. It starts by a famine. But the thing here is it's wheat that's placed before them, or on this, in this bowl, and they were made from gold, because everything on this table is gold. Now the lampstand and the lamps were pure gold, okay, and the light, this is for not to burn in front of his, yeah, here, inner sanctuary. No, the sanctuary is it's a room. This is where he is meeting. The whole idea, our Creator defined it by a tent for meeting with him for Moses. So let's keep that as understanding, and stop calling it a sanctuary, tabernacle. It was a tent for meeting with him, and then it was a house for meeting with him. Yeah, don't use the word temple ever. But now here, this word here, tongues, and this is not right, because it's the lamps, and we got snuffers and pitchers, and we got stuff going on this with the lampstand here. Now the lamps are very interesting, because they were out in the Sinai, and they were to make the shape of um, the cups that are going to hold this oil that this pitcher is going to be made for, is to hold the oil for the lamp. And this is, let me pull up a website real quick here, and you can see that this is an almond blossom. That's what the text says. But what about this flower? Now that looks like it's better flower. So that's, now you have the image of this cup, and then these shields are going to be there. And I don't think there's a image out there at all that does this, but you got to remember, this lamp was set next to hides. Okay, so the thing is, you needed a shield to keep the heat and the light from going that way. So the object is this shield, whether they were cup shape or whatever, it was to reflect the light inward, okay, and away from the wall. So I have to have the word shield put in here. I'm not sure if I'm using that from someplace else. I'm trying to think. That'd be worth double checking to make sure I was right here. I think that might have been when they were making the tent. That's where I'm getting the word shield. And after the house was finished, okay, now this is like the first video I was explaining that they were going to make a peace offering, and this is now where that is actually going to be placed in this area here. They were finished, and the high priest brought them in. Okay, high priest. Why am I adding the word high priest? And then there's the highest priest, and then there's the high priest, and then there's going to be high attendance. Well, maybe just attendance. Yeah, high attendance. And that's because when they have their synagogues made, who was teaching them? Well, the Levites were teaching them, so they could have labeled that person as the preacher as the priest, because the priests were supposed to know all the laws and things like that. So your Levites were your judges, your lawyers. So the thing here is if I said the word priest on the outside in a synagogue, and if I use the priest here, you'd be confused. So to make sure that when we're talking about the house and the word house isn't there, and I use high priest, you know what priests we're talking about, not just normal priests that aren't doing any of the services for atonement for forgiveness. So here I'm adding the word high priest to the text. And all the captains for the tribes. Now, if I think I'm going to make a correction to our creator's hidden formats. I think I used chiefs. Because I think the word head has the word chief. Let me see here. 5-2. That'd be a good time to check this. 5-2. Head. Master, yeah. See how they use the word chief? Okay, yeah, I can use the word captains. I got no problem with that then. Okay. But it can be a chief. I think that's what I was trying to say is like the most elderest of the tribe. So here in this, I'm using as captains. And then of our tribes and the leaders, no, captains, if I'm using captains, that has to be armies here. They would have had full authority of over even the head leader of the group, because these were military men. They listened to the king. So that's why their importance of the standing is why I have them here in Jerusalem. And then they witnessed them bringing in his chest and his commandments. So now, with his commandments, they're witnessing the pieces finally that they didn't remake or rebuild. They for his house, because some things are a lot larger now. But the chest they would not remade. So when they brought in his chest, which would have probably been the last item, and then the mercy seat would have been the same size. So the angels, even though that they're saying have bigger wings, I don't think it can, but yeah. Anyways, this is all going to get adjusted later. This text is not in cement here, or in stone, or whatever, in clay. And it would be his priests. So once I have the word his, then we know that they're specifically tied to the house. So I don't need high priest here when I'm using the word his, and his chest. And they place it under the wings of the angels. That makes a covering for his mercy seat. Now I had to add his mercy seat because what are they covering? And the wings, when they're out like that, they'd be straight, and then their arms are holding it, and then they're facing each other, and they're holding the mercy seat, and he appears above the mercy seat. And I believe he shows himself as a light, like a flat circle of pure white light. Boy, that's have no image of him, but that's make that image, but I guess I can tell you that's how our Creator made me see him as a circle of light, brilliant purity, a white so pure it's uh, yeah, not even the word yet. Get that out of my mouth. Um, Brilliant purity is the only way I can describe that white. And as this priest came out of the house, they have to have these guys that actually took it in there, because only certain ones that can go in there. This couldn't have been done by assistants. Okay, it has to be the priest because they're the ones that are allowed into the meeting room. So I can't have the word attendance, so we have to have priests. And the high priest is usually the eldest, so we're probably looking for the youngest who can carry it in there, because they are carrying it in on poles, and then that gets inside. They remove the poles. Now the poles should be left in the meeting room, along with the poles that were used to bring the angel in. So there's other things that are in the meeting room. In fact, there's 12 rocks as well in there that they picked up from when they crossed the Jordan River. He had them stop and grab them. Those memorial rocks are remembrance that he did it for them coming into the promised land. So the thing there is uh, they were kept in the meeting room as well. Where, I don't know. Oh, excuse me. Um, Now that filled with a cloud, this should be his cloud. And then Solomon proclaimed, "We have built him a house forever," not a dwelling, a house forever, place for thy dwelling. It's not true. That's just false. And then he stood before all that was assembled, and he spread out his arms. So I've had conversations with Muslims that they were saying, why do people pray with their arms out when they're talking to our Creator? And when I explained this right here, that he spread his arms out when he was, after he built the house, and he's going to ask for a petition, um, not a prayer, a petition he's going to ask. And then he knelt on his knees and he looked towards heaven. If you want to know where heaven is located, in the description below, I show you where heaven is at. So now you know the direction where he's actually looking. And then he goes through here and he's petitioning and actually saying some things about the promise that our Creator gave him. So they had to obey, not just walk. They have to obey your commands, not laws, their commands. There's laws that, yes, will be are lesser than commandments, lesser than statutes. It starts statutes, commandments, and then laws. But when I use the word commands, it includes all of them. So I didn't want people to be confused. Well, why not use the word law? But to obey all of them, and then they wouldn't be sent away, because our Creator's promise is if they go away, they can be sent into captivity. And I guess Solomon is understanding why David put it together, put Israel back together as one. They had separated themselves from each other. So he knows that they weren't good at that time. And this building of the house, they were coming back to become a good people again. Punish the wicked. Defeat, but they're captives of our enemies, not defeated before our enemies, but they're captives. That's because when you look, they have to be away from them. They're confessing to them and it's not before you, but towards your house. They're in captivity, so it has to be towards your house. It's not a supplication, it's a petition. They use both these words back and forth. I'm getting rid of supplication using petition. And then you hear from heaven, and this is a lot where they'll say this is why you can say confession in church. You don't need a priest. That's the problem here, that you don't need to say confession in front of a priest. You confess to our Creator and Jesus, and you don't need that false teaching that they're teaching today. Then they forgive their sin and then return them back to our land. It wouldn't be true for today people, but you don't return to Israel. And here I'm using, because this I'm using as the second word. A lot of times when the main character is our Creator, when he says me, or when somebody's saying him as a you or him, I don't use another large word. I use it as the other second main word. Sometimes I use the word I am or am for that. And this is what he is supposed to do. I am to walk by your commands to live in your land. And then there's a lot of text that's not needed. Solomon didn't pray. Pray means to talk one-on-one with our Creator. But when you're asking for something, this petition, he was asking more than he was just talking to our Creator. And then from heaven consumed their peace offering. See, it had a burnt offering. It's burnt after it's done. The peace offering, you have to understand what is the offering, and it's the peace offering that he's offering. So he's asking for the peace of the nation. Now that the house is built, let us all come in peace now. That we now have a house for you, and the cloud was gone. But let's see, a fire came down from heaven. That should have been capitalized. That should have been capitalized. That should have been capitalized. From heaven and consumed their peace offering. So very visual. I mean, now that you know all these things and the colors, the position he's looking, where he's gathering, where the door entrance is at. So you can see he's at the south entrance, the southern side of the gate where it's at the south. You now know where he's standing, you know where he's now looking, and where the crowd is behind him, looking towards heaven. All this is now definitely a movie setup here in your head. Okay. They didn't observe, they celebrated, and it's not a feast. It was the passing over of them that they would celebrate at that time for 7 days. That's the wrong number of days. His passing over is the first day of the year, which is the holiest day of the year, is the first day of the year. And then in the Sinai, he had changed the celebration to last for 7 more days, which would make that all the way until the next holiest day. So those are 8 days. Well, sometimes in the text, I think there's another story. Where's that? Jehu, which is a king 200 years away, he talks about their celebration of this, that they had built the house. Well, he rebuilt it and recleaned it, fixed the roof or something, and then had them clean it out of the pagan idols that they started sticking in there. So that's when he's talking about that passing over, that they did the same thing. So just the uniqueness of comparing the two stories and why he would say that. But I guess that's at another time. Heard your petitions, and then he makes these promises that if you, my statutes, like I said, they're number one, commandments are number two, and that's the correct order. That being said here, you see, I didn't add these words. What to which, what, not set, but said to them. I guess maybe that should even been just that I added the word. And then it has to be a lesser, the lesser. I will uproot you from the land, and then I'll make them not a proverb. Everybody just doesn't go around and say um, Jews are lesser or they have a proverb. They do consider them lesser, not a byword, a proverb and a byword. No, I'm using the word lesser here. They are looked down upon because those Jews don't understand that Jesus is our creator in heaven. They've been deceived by um, the God and goddess even to today. The Talmud, I think, if you read that, you'll find that that has a lot of praise her in it. But that's the female goddess that they're onto. And so they're looked down as lesser because they killed Jesus as well. So that's why I'm using the word lesser. Then Solomon's going to build his own house here. Okay, this text I don't think I'm going to use. I should have had already adjusted that. And it should be here like that. Yeah, now it's okay. Now all of a sudden, Queen for Sheba. That it's not her name. Okay, this is a land. This is a area of land, and I do have that location because there is a time when in one of the books of all the shipping that's going on. Be to Jesus. Okay. Now you can see here is where I'm going to say Sheben. Okay. Sheban. And what is the, yeah, they put an N at the end of it here. And so I got to correct that. Let me make sure I do that. Oops. Or change the map later. Although I made the map because of the way that the construction of, what do I got to do over here? Yeah, it pops up over here. These locations are all mentioned of the trading on the seas. This is one sea and this is another sea. And all the trading, this was a trading route of these countries. And she had spices. That's why this has to be here. This is where she came from, for the simple fact that she had spices that they had not seen yet. And we know India is over here. And when you look at this time of this map was made and how much trading that they knew of other people and how far it was, they knew India existed. Okay. So the other thing is Babylon, they understood, and then, because I think this is at Babylon's time. Uh, no, this is at the Assyrian time. before Babylon comes down, because Assyria's coming through and they're going to destroy the shipping that's going on here. But the thing here is when you look at how the knowledge of the layout of the land, they knew it was round, the earth was round, but the location and the people just let you know at a certain time they knew about them and they were able to trade. So yes, races would different races would mingle, and you had a lot of races, and they wouldn't be looking at them as strange. Okay, um, so uh, spices in jars. I had to have them in something because when they're dried out, they're carrying them on camels, but they wouldn't do. I needed them in jars, large amount, much gold. Explained to her everything she wanted to know, and attendants were attending, so that's not a big change. And they witnessed, not here, but they witnessed your wisdom. And you judge righteously, not justice and righteousness. That being a king, he judges righteously. Here is the spices that we had never seen. I had to add the word seen. And it's of Sheba, not Queen Sheba. And this is the gold that was brought in for 1 year. I know that this is a different number. I've changed it because I got rid of that much. So that would have been too much gold. But the object is then there was other kings from Arabia, and like I showed you the map here, that they came. This king would have came. This king would have came. Egypt's king. I don't have land kingdoms over here, but they would have traveled from here as well. But these are the kings that were coming to Solomon. And from along the coastlands. So that's the coastlands. I had to add the coastlands. It just makes sense to give this territory meaning of they're along the coast, because they had to trade. These were places to trade. And you notice Medina is not here. So anyways, Solomon makes his throne. Wisdom was greater than all other kings. So here's when I mentioned before that, trying to explain what kind of knowledge did Solomon have. And like I said, his knowledge had to be extra special. And we know that people have photographic memory. Well, his had to be photographic memory of the animals, plant growth, and just the understanding of the seasons, because it would have been this knowledge of what to plant, when to plant, to help the people live, that he could, well, you plant this at this time and this, just that type of knowledge to help out other kings. Why would they be coming to him to give him such wealth? And it would be his knowledge to help them people actually their kingdoms out as well. So I've never heard anybody else give an explanation for his wisdom or what his wisdom was. And he ruled over. Okay, this is the land that's now being told what he's ruling over. Down here, the Philistines have been ran out of here, and this is the river Egypt, and the river Egypt was the boundary for Egypt. This land here was always owned by Egypt. Babylon only came so far. So, but the object is all this, and oops, yep, that isn't the one. Here we go. I'm sorry. This was all the way across. This is everybody here now was paying tribute to Solomon. This is what he ruled all the way up here by Lebanon. And if you know where that last map, no, it's too big. I don't think I have a larger map, but anyways, you know now what this is. Lebanon to the east, to the river for Egypt. Okay. The border of Egypt. So there is their understanding as it was a border river. And they also had Philistines in here. So don't think I'm just making up places. Everything I've got is backed up by text from our Creator's Hidden Formats. Now, Acts, but it was the days for Solomon from the first to last. And this gives us an idea how they wrote their scrolls and how they had different scrolls. They might have had one of just battles. They might have had one of each of the, like Exodus would have been a separate book, a scroll. And then the laws out of Exodus would have been another scroll. So this gives us an idea of what is happening with it later when they're doing Kings, and then how the prophets are announced when their books were entered into the scrolls. So this is very important when you're understanding what kind of scrolls they had and how they ordered their scrolls. And I'm going to end it here. And that's just good to know. This answer right here is where we got a lot of information.